Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Jim Bellino doesn't believe Alexis Bellino and Tamra Judge are truly friends. When Alexis Bellino returned to the Real Housewives of Orange County this season, she was in a good place with Tamra Judge. It was a surprising development because they hated each other during their last stint on the show together. There has been much debate about whether they strategically mended fences to take down Shannon Beater, because season 18 has featured them both making damaging accusations about their co-star. As a result, Alexis and Tamra have faced never-ending backlash because viewers struggle to understand how they became friends and, more importantly, why they have it out for Shannon. It hasn't been a good season for the ladies, and Alexis' ex-husband, Jim Bellino, is questioning whether they are even friends. Do I think they are truly friends? No. Jim Bellino had always been a man who could spot trouble a mile away. He prided himself on his ability to read people, and that talent had served him well in business. But when it came to his ex-wife Alexis Bellino and her so-called friendship with Tamra Judge, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Sure, they made public amends after their infamous falling out on the Real Housewives of Orange County. The drama had reached levels that made viewers cringe, with Tamra calling Alexis Jesus Jugs and accusing her of being phony. But years later, there they were on social media, smiling together at events and acting like the past was water under the bridge. To Jim, though, it seemed like an elaborate facade. He scrolled through his phone, looking at the most recent photo of Alexis and Tamra on Instagram. They were at some lavish dinner, both dressed to the nines, glasses of wine in hand. The caption from Alexis read, "Old friends, new memories." Jim nearly laughed out loud. Old friends? He knew better. He had lived through their public spats, seen Alexis come home from RHOC set days furious, and heard over the way Tamra had treated her. It wasn't something easily forgotten, let alone forgiven. Sitting back in his office chair, Jim leaned his elbows on the polished mahogany desk and stared out the window. He couldn't deny that Alexis had changed since the divorce. She had found a new confidence in her own skin, something that had been missing in their marriage. But that didn't mean her newfound friendship with Tamra was genuine. In fact, Jim was convinced it was all for show. Alexis isn't the kind of person to hold grudges, he muttered to himself. That much was true. She was deeply religious and believed in forgiveness, but there was a difference between forgiving someone and allowing them back into your life with open arms. Alexis, for all her grace and spirituality, had been wounded by Tamra. And Tamra? Jim suspected she was only interested in being back in Alexis' good graces because it was convenient. Tamra was no stranger to using people when it benefited her, especially in front of the cameras. Jim had seen it all unfold too many times. Friendships in the world of reality TV were fragile, fleeting things. They were transactional at best, alliances formed for the sake of storylines, ratings, or public appearances. And when those cameras were turned off, so were the friendships. That's what he suspected was happening between Alexis and Tamra. He had no problem admitting that Tamra had charisma. She was sharp, witty, and unafraid to speak her mind, which made for excellent television. But that didn't make her trustworthy. Jim had watched Tamra turn on people countless times. She thrived on conflict, almost relished in stirring the pot. It was how she stayed relevant in a cutthroat world where staying in the spotlight was key. To Jim, it didn't add up that someone like Tamra, who thrived on drama, would genuinely want peace with someone she had once torn apart. Jim knew Alexis had a big heart. That was part of why their marriage had worked for as long as it had. She was compassionate, always wanting to believe the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. But in this case, Jim feared that his ex-wife's kindness was being taken advantage of. It wasn't just the history of bad blood between Alexis and Tamra that made Jim suspicious. It was the timing. The reconciliation between the two women had come at a convenient moment. Tamra had been off the show for a while and was making her comeback. Alexis, who had long moved on from the RHOC spotlight, suddenly found herself back in the orbit of that world. The reality TV machine had a way of pulling people back in, whether they wanted it or not. Was this friendship just a storyline in the making? A way for Tamra to secure her place back in the limelight and bring Alexis along for the ride. Jim sighed, running a hand through his hair. Maybe he was being too cynical. Maybe he was still holding on to some bitterness from his own experiences with the show and the people involved. But deep down, he knew his instincts were right. He had seen Alexis at her lowest during her time on RHOC, and Tamra had been one of the people who pushed her there. It didn't seem possible that they could truly be friends now, not after everything that had happened. He wondered if Alexis truly believed in the friendship, or if she too was playing a part. In the world they had lived in for so long, authenticity often took a backseat to perception. Perhaps Alexis felt it was easier to forgive and forget, to go along with the narrative of reconciliation rather than rehash old wounds. But Jim couldn't shake the feeling that it was all built on shaky ground. The door to his office creaked open, and his assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Bellino, your 2 o'clock is here." Jim nodded, pushing thoughts of Alexis and Tamra aside for the moment. As his assistant left, he reached for his phone again, scrolling back through Alexis' Instagram feed. It was filled with happy moments, vacation photos, and shots of her living her best life. He wanted that for her, he truly did. But he also wanted her to be careful. Before his meeting, Jim sent Alexis a text. "Hope everything's going well." Just a reminder to be cautious about who you trust. Not everyone has your best interests at heart. He didn't mention Tamra. He didn't need to. If Alexis was smart, and he believed she was, she would know exactly who he was referring to. Whether she listened or not was up to her, but Jim had done his part. He couldn't stop her from making her own choices, but he could try to protect her in the only way he knew how, from a distance. As he placed his phone down and straightened his tie, Jim couldn't help but think that, sooner or later, the cracks in Alexis and Tamra's so-called friendship would start to show. And when they did, he hoped Alexis wouldn't be too hurt by what she found on the other side.